This is Bob Bradley, and you're listening to my chapter of As the Story Grows.
Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. This week, we welcome Scars of Tomorrow and Fake Figures bassist Bob Bradley to the podcast. I got connected with Bob via Down Again. Bob is their PR manager, and through doing that interview, I decided to reach out and ask Bob to do an episode. Bob chats about Scars of Tomorrow and getting to work with a ton of amazing producers over their career, being a part of Victory Records, and going from band guy to working in public relations. Earlier this year, Bob released a book on PR for musicians, which is available on Amazon. You can find a link to the book in the show notes. This was a super fun chat, and I hope you guys enjoy it. How's COVID treating you, man?
Well, so far so good. I don't have it, thankfully. I mean, funny but not funny. It's
Right.
It's definitely weird. I'm sure like most people can agree. It's like this. If you can't relate to it, if you don't have somebody like that that has had it, you still feel that weird energy, like that everything is different.
Yeah.
You know, you could still go outside, you could still do a lot of the same things, but it's just, like Disneyland's closed and all these major things that you're just like, wow, this is like unreal. Like I'll see restaurants down the street and people are eating outside under tents, and it's just those little things kind of make it feel weird, like life just changed so instantly, and people are getting used to it. And I don't like the whole quote unquote new normal phrase, but I think it's just a for now kind of acclimation that people have to get used to,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how I feel. It's weird. I'll just put it at that.
Has it significantly changed how you approached public relations right now?
Not a ton, to be honest. If anything, it kind of amplified my efforts, where there's more. I'll rewind for a second. And, when I started in PR, I actually worked for Fearless Records, and I was in charge of online PR. So my forte is the online sphere. So like I was kind of ready for this, where, a lot of people are maybe good at touring PR, regional PR. I do a lot in print as well, but most of it's online. So for me, I'm like, let's take this to 11. And, everything is living online right now. So thankfully I was prepared for that. But I mean, when it happened, I had certain clients that went on hold just because they're, in realms outside of music, other creative industries where I'm just like, man, that sucks, but I just hustled, and a lot of, through the network, I got more clients, thankfully. So, but yeah, it was definitely, you have to, it's a mindset shift that has happened with all of this. And, the strategy is relatively the same, but it's like the way you go about it, the way you talk to people, the way that you are considerate of other people's time. It's like we're all weirded out by this. You know what I mean?
For sure. All right, let's backing up. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Orange, California, which is south of LA, like 30 minutes or 3 hours, depending on traffic. Lived in LA for a while and moved back here to Orange County years back.
Cool. What was growing up like for you?
It was terrible. Oh my God. I'm just kidding. I mean, it was cool. I had a lot of great friends in my neighborhood. I grew up in your average kind of suburb, kind of like the cover of No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom. What you see on there is kind of like the Orange County thing. And I guess it's first world problems, middle class family upbringing, friends. You don't get every toy, but you get some toys, and playing baseball, hanging out with friends, discovering music at a young age, and Orange County is interesting. It's very vanilla. It's not as amazing as say like an LA would be as far as like diversity and cool things to do and food. So I didn't have like that exposure to like amazing food and different things like that until I got a little older. But yeah, that's a hard thing to describe. It's like growing up in Orange County. It's like, 'cause there's so much great music from here. I'll jump to that.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, but I didn't get a lot of that when I was like, 12 years old. I was just like, cool, Power Rangers is on, awesome. Like,
yeah, so. For sure. What was your gateway into music?
Geez, I mean, there's stuff I wouldn't want to admit to. I used to play in. I was a total nerd. I guess I still am, but I played in orchestras when I was a kid.
Okay.
And in like middle school and stuff, and so I was more formally trained as like going into high school, learning to read music, and so I was into a lot of like soundtracks and stuff like that, and I think that my cousin, had a lot of like Depeche Mode and Green Day and, cool band posters all over the wall. So that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of, finding music that way, which is a lot harder back then, especially when your parents wouldn't take you to the store all the time to buy music and you were afraid to buy stuff that had curse words in it. And
right.
You didn't want to piss off your parents. And I mean, I did anyways. Warped Tour was a huge one. That was kind of like the groundbreaking ceremony for me with music, especially with live music. And it was actually in a different state out of all places. I was visiting family in Oklahoma, and, I was like 15, and I went to, Warped Tour out there, and it changed everything, just the energy, seeing people performing, it's different, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like going to a local show, and it's like when your first major experience with music is like a fest. And then you want to start going to local shows. You want to start, taking it all in. And so, but I didn't have a big brother or a big sister, hand me their record collection. It came from a lot of like external places, and it took a little bit of time. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't like one, moment, but it just built. And I was just fell in love with music. You know what I mean? Especially with shows.
Yeah, for sure. What got you into playing? Are you a bass player by trade, or kind of just stumbled into it as outside of orchestra? Yeah.
I totally stumbled into it. It was in high school. I started working at a movie theater, and I had a couple of buddies that worked there with me, and they're like, yeah, we're in a band. And, I'm like 16, 17 years old, and I don't even think I knew how to play any sort of, I played drums a little bit, and, not very well, but I went over there, and he handed me a bass, my friend John, who's no longer with us. Rest in peace, buddy. But he handed me a bass, and we just started playing, and you just figure it out. It's like you just jump into the fire. There's no stress. There's no record deal. You're just having fun with your buddies, playing Nirvana and, all these different kinds of, I don't know. At that point, it's like you could be into anything and not worry about it and be like, oh, you're not into like, if you're an MXPX fan and, you can't get into Korn or something like that. And it's just like, dude, whatever works, man. Like we would just play all kinds of music, and I just got better and better by hanging out with my buddies and just playing music at home. But for me, it was like, it was a reason to hang out. It was like you're playing this instrument as a vehicle for playing, with your friends and ultimately playing shows, and just, it's like the social aspect, So I know a lot of people get into it probably for a better reason, because they love playing music and learning the art, learning the scales. But I was already doing that on the nerdy side with orchestras and stuff. So maybe I had a leg up on that. So
yeah.
So hopefully that's the story.
That's cool. What was that evolution of playing in bands like that gets you to Scars of Tomorrow?
Well, it was me, my friend Carlos, who's still one of my best friends and my friend John, we were called like the Idiot Savant, and this all evolves into it's all like the same people, and I think we changed our name to like Fallon, and not like Jimmy Fallon, but like Falon. It's like I don't even know what that means. I think it was like some girl that our drummer liked, and he's like, "That's such a cool name. Let's name our band after that chick." And Idiot Savant, Fallon, and Short End, which became my Hotmail account name. People are like, "What is that?" It's like, but we would just jam and play different kinds of music. Different members would come in, and I think as the Idiot Savant, we had two singers at one point. One was from a pretty credible hardcore band locally. I think he like did backup for like this band called Exist, and another guy, our friend Dan. And so we had two singers. We were trying to play stuff like Zayo and a lot of the Christian hardcore bands meets like some of the new metal like Deftones kind of stuff. And we didn't care. It was just like the stuff that we were listening to at the time. And we ran into our friend Mike Milford, who was friends with one of our other singers. Yeah, we had like two at the mall, out of all places, of course, right? And he came over and started jamming with us because one of the other singers left, and we decided on Scars of Tomorrow, and that was over 20 years ago at this point, which is crazy. It makes me feel old, but it's just like the stereotype would be, you're at the mall hanging out with friends, and it's just like, let's start a band, dude. Cool, and that, I feel like all of our interactions were happening, in social places like the mall or going to Chain Reaction and going to different shows here in Orange County, which Chain Reaction is still a venue today. Everything's closed, which sucks, but we'll just speak of it as it is still open, because hopefully it'll be back to normal sooner than later.
What led you guys to Thorpe Records?
Geez, that's a good question. I think Mike had a connection or reached out, our singer Mike, reached out to them at one point. We actually put out our first album, All Things Change, on our own. It was the predecessor to that was a 4-song demo that we made probably thousands of CD-ROM copies of, and we would stand out in front of every show possible in Orange County and meet everybody and just hand out CDs. And that's what the thing was back then. You couldn't post on MySpace. It didn't exist. So you had to go to shows. You had to hand out flyers. People were handing out CDs. You were talking to people. You weren't in a hurry to get home and work more. We were all super young. So it's like we developed a lot of our fan base because of that. And when we put out our self-released full length, Thorpe ended up signing us and putting it out again, like a re-release. And we got Jake Bannon from Converge to do the artwork for that. And that was all Thorpe. I think Jacob was doing a lot of art for them at the time, which blew our minds. It's like Jane Doe was one of my favorite, gateway records into, a lot of the hardcore stuff. And we were just like so pumped. It's like, oh my God, we have a record deal and we've been a band for like a year and a half. It's like insane. But I have a lot of stories about that era too. So if it fits, I'll tell you some.
Sure. And you did your second record with Bo, and that was before he was in Seosin, right? Or was that right around that same time?
Yeah, that was actually right around the same time that they formed. And if I go over on talking about this, but basically we were really close with Bo at that point. Cool. The dude's just such a prodigy. It's like he's dedicated to the art of electronics and amps and production. And he loves what he does, and he has this whole entire time. When we would go to his house in Newport or Costa Mesa and just track our Scars Tomorrow demos, we're like, dude, let's do a full length together. And around that same time, Seosin was forming as well, and they were trying out different singers, and Anthony Green finally made the cut. And our drummer, something that a lot of people probably don't know, is that our drummer Chris Warner, who hopefully Bo doesn't mind me talking about this, but that Seosin had a drummer who was this tech guy from Guitar Center, and he was a backup drummer or tech for Slayer or something. And that's the guy that you hear on the EP, just absolutely insane. And before they got the guy who was an open hand to play drums, Chris was helping out Seosin to try out singers. And hopefully I'm not playing the game of telephone with myself and I'm mixing up memories, but that's how it went. And then Chris, I don't know if they asked him to join the band. I think they did, maybe not. But he ended up staying with us, so hopefully he doesn't regret that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we did a lot of work with Bo, and he was just amazing and a lot of fun to work with on that second album, Design Your Fate, which was also on Thorpe, and it got re-released on some Let It Burn records in Germany. And I don't think there's that many copies left, but thankfully I have one in my file somewhere under a bed.
Yeah. What led you guys to Victory Records and signing with Victory?
I love the flow of this, by the way. So after we put out Design Your Fate, we were playing a bunch of shows, and like I think we reached like the pinnacle of our being AKA like popular in Orange County, and that we started shopping the record. I think we got management before that. Yeah, I think we had management, and we were actually talking to Hopeless Subsidy Records, who had like Thrice and Avenged and things like that. And I don't know what happened with that, but the Atreyu dudes dropped our album on Tony Brummel's desk, and that led to that conversation and us getting signed to the label. And Tony, love him or hate him, like dude did something right and created a powerhouse and created a lot of opportunities for people. And thankfully, he signed us, and it led to a lot of cool opportunities and us recording with cool people.
Yeah, you did. The horror you did with Matt from Minus the Bear, right?
Correct, and that was the second album on Victory. The first one was Rope Tied to the Trigger that was done with Kurt Ballou from Converge. Funny enough, another Converge moment, and that was kind of the pinnacle moment, I think, for the creative aspects of the band and for just us being in the studio together. I mean, nothing will ever beat that moment of 30 days being in Salem, Massachusetts, and I think it's in Massachusetts, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to fuck that up. But yeah, we spent a month there. It was close to Halloween, and we spent time there. Like, our guitar player stole liquor from the bar, and we were they were going down the street. We saw Jake from Converge, and we were like, Jake, and then we were so scared that we like turned around and like. But then the next day he came into the studio and he was like the coolest dude. And Nate, the bass player, I got to use his GNL bass on the recording. And we had the tech guy who did like Thrice's Artists in the Ambulance, did their drum setup, who did ours. And we felt like spoiled brats. It's like that whole experience was just like, we don't deserve this, but we're going to make the best of this. And I think we made our best record at that point, But Horror of Realization was followed up, and we recorded that with Matt Bales up in Seattle at Studio Letho. It's right outside of Seattle. I forgot the area, but it's owned by Stone Gossard of Pearl Jam. I think he's a Pearl Jam. Wow. That place is rad. Like, that was like a super cool studio. I mean, I like the music on that album. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my favorite recording.
Yeah.
It's just, it wasn't like the matched style for, a heavy as heck metal band. But it worked for Mastodon, it worked for ISIS, it worked for Norma Jean and all that. But it's just, I don't think it worked for us. And so I like the ideas of the songs, but it just sounded kind of weak.
Did you guys to work with Kurt and to work with Matt, was that something you guys were pursuing as a band, or was that something Victory was bringing up to you?
I think on Rope, we wanted to work with Kurt, and I think we asked for that, and he gave us the label a killer deal on it. I can't believe he charged that low of a price for that entire experience. And the second album was substantially more expensive. And I mean, Matt was super cool. I'm surprised he even worked with us because we're not the kind of band that he works with.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if he just like wanted the money or something, but it was fine. It was a fun experience. It was a beautiful area up there, but it just didn't feel the same as it did with Kurt. You know, with Kurt, it's like if he can work with whoever he wants, you know, and he has a certain taste, and if he chooses to work with you, you're damn lucky. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it was just two different experiences. They were both fine. They were both a lot of fun. I remember being up there with Matt, and then Under Oath came by the studio, and they're just like walking behind me as I'm like holding my bass, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds cool, man. I like that part." And I'm just like, "I love you guys. You guys are my heroes." But you don't do that. You don't want to be that guy, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But there was a lot of cool experiences that happened while we were up in Seattle for sure. You know, it's just I mean, I don't regret it. I just don't think that was our best. A lot of it's on the band too. It's like we could have done better. We could have prepared more for that experience. So we could have spoken up more. So I never like to put things on one side. It's just when you reflect on recording and writing and doing things, especially from a business perspective, it's like you gotta, whatever comes out of that is because of the efforts of both sides. So I'll put it at that.
Yeah. Did you guys have issues with Victory, or issues you realized at the time while you were working with them?
Oh, you can't ask me that question. Come on.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to get sued. I'm just kidding. No, I think everything's fine. It's like I actually talked to Tony a few months ago and caught up with him. I've always been very civil with him, and we're totally fine. And I was just, you know, I think because they sold their catalog to another, to Concord or something like that. And I just asked a couple questions. They cleared it up, and we're still in the red with the label. They spent a lot of money on us. We sold a good amount of records, but it's like, I was just asking, like, what is the status of this? And they answered, and everyone's happy. So, but I know a lot of bands were in quote unquote different positions, but that's up to their lawyers, and that's up to the label to deal with that. I'm not going to accuse, I don't know, like it's hard because I've had small labels and publishing companies, and the math is always difficult because it's like, it's really expensive to run a company, and bands just assume that you're, you know, driving around in Lamborghinis if you have a label. And it's just like, if that label spends, you know, $40, $50, $100,000 on your band, you have to make that money back first before you start getting checks. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the band might feel that they had like a stellar, you know, first week or two or month or year, but it's like they might still be in the hole, you know? And it's like, unless people in bands understand how business works and understands the contract, they might feel kind of in that victim mode until they truly know what's going on. So I don't want to bore you to tears with all that stuff, but you know, it's, once you understand business, I think your perspective kind of lightens up a little bit on that topic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so. For sure. What led basically the whole band to quit after the horror of realization?
Oh boy. I love you, Mike. And this is nothing against anybody in the band, but like I know that's a sore spot for Mike because he kept the band going. But yeah, I think we reached a point where, I mean, we toured with Bury Your Dead like so many times, and we had this tour. We had an opportunity, and it was Yesterday's Rising or something, and some other band, but it was like more of a crossover kind of band, and it didn't pay a lot, but it paid more than the usual. And I think one of the bands was fresh off Warped Tour, and it's like, you know, it's like, dude, we dress up, we play metalcore and all that, but we're trying to appeal to a metal, like, hardcore audience, which is, you know, corely a lot of dudes. And sometimes they come to the show and they don't spend a lot of money. And then you have the other side, which are the crossover. I think Chiodos and all those kind of bands were blowing up at the time. And like the boyfriend and the girlfriend show up, and they both like the bands. They buy a lot of merch, and it's like, I think we wanted to balance that out a little bit better, but we kept doing a lot of like hardcore, you know, tours. And I love hardcore. Like, to the depths of my soul. Even to this day, I love so many bands that are, and all the new bands that are coming out. So it's nothing against that, but it just came to a point where I'm like, man, I'm like tired of doing hardcore tours all the time. You know what I mean? And it's nothing against that, but we had this tour lined up with Terror and Bury Your Dead or something like that. And even though right now I'm like, that sounds amazing, you know, like,
right.
you know, I kind of regret not doing it, but at that time it just felt like we didn't want to do that. And I think like there was other things between members that were, maybe they were burnt out and just like, so it was nothing against any member against any other member. I think everyone was just tired because we were touring relentlessly. And I think the last thing we wanted to do was just go on tour and play another, you know, night after night in front of dudes in camo shorts. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Even though I wear camo all the time, hopefully that makes sense. It's like in that moment, we were done. And that, you know, it kind of sucked at the moment. Nobody wanted to do it, but the 4 instrumental people, not instrumental members, but people that play instruments, including drums, we were done. We wanted more time off, but they, as a collective, you know, especially our manager, I think was just like tour. And I'm just not that guy, man. Like I can't spend 250 days a year on the road. It's exhausting, you know?
Yeah. Especially the older you get, it wears on you.
Yeah. I don't want to be complaining because it's like, there's people out there that would kill to tour that much. And that's great for them, you know? And it's like, it's a necessary thing for certain genres of music and certain levels of bands, you know, especially if you're paying all your bills. If you're paying all your bills that way, you know what I mean? Like, you got to keep doing that. But I was about discovering other ways to live my life at that moment. So I'll leave it at that.
Were you a part of the band that reformed in 2013 and released Failed Transmissions?
Yes, I was.
You were?
It was just Mike Milford and myself, yeah. And then new members. And we actually played a show in 2010 with most of the original lineup, and then fizzled away, and then Failed Transmissions came out, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even write on that. That was it was a weird situation. It was like we were just trying to get some music out there, and that was co-written by another guy who did a lot of stuff for that band Slaves.
Okay.
So if people listen to that and they're just like, dude, this sounds nothing like Scars Tomorrow, well, there you go. But then, yeah, I'm sure you're going to ask about one of the newer songs, and I was definitely involved in that one. So
first, I want to, what led to getting together with Mike and working on a new record? Was that him wanting to do that? Or
I think it was just him and I just catching up as friends, and it's just like, that's, you know, a lot of people, you know, get together and watch sports, and it's like I get together with my friends and talk about and make music, you know, and I mean, sports is great too, but watching baseball without fans is weird though. But at least fans in the audience. But Mike and I, we just catch up and we're like, how are you, dude? Blah, blah, blah. You know, he has a lot going on the business side of things with the Franz from Attila, and he's doing the label thing, and I do my PR. So we still have a lot in common, you know, and it's like, we've been friends forever, and it's like, dude, let's do a new song. And we're like, cool. And that led to Failed Transmissions, but it's like, I was super busy, he was super busy, so that's why we had some help on that. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question. It's just, that's what usually happens when we talk. It's just like the conversation ends with, let's do a song, or let's do an album, and it either happens or it doesn't. You know, we've had plenty of conversations where we agree to do it, and then all of a sudden it's been 2 years, and you're like, oh, forgot to do that.
Yeah, and then you did the single Perspectives in 2018.
Yeah, that was that was Mike and I kind of came up with an idea, and I had my buddy Travis, who's in a band Fake Figures with myself, and he's also in that band Atreyu, and my friend Tony Kim, who I'm both. He's in a group called Dance of the Dead. Awesome producer. They helped us out with the song, and yeah, took it from there. And our friend Pete on that song, Pete Sherrill from the band Trapped. He's the most cool dude. I know there's a lot going around about the singer, but Pete is the coolest fucking dude on the planet. Two completely different people, and I have no. It's fine. But he helped mix the song as well. So it's like you just call in your friends. And you're just like, dude, you want to help us out with this track? And they're like, cool, man, yeah. So for me, it's just like it's a reason to like hang out and like talk to people. It's like music, it's the creative output, like I'm a terrible artist. I can't draw worth crap.
Right.
With music, I can rally the troops and like get some stuff out there into the world,
Yeah. You think y'all continue in the future to drop singles like that as Scars of Tomorrow? Yeah. I
think so. It's like Mike posted something on Facebook like a month or two ago about it, and it had like 100 comments, a couple hundred likes, and like there's people out there, it's like, which to me is weird because I feel like it's just such a like done thing. And if you see those bands and you're like, oh, I thought that band broke up.
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure people say that about us anytime we mention anything. But it's like, if there's interest, it's like, why not put something out there? Even if there's not interest, it's like, who cares? Just put music out there. And if it gets a few streams, it's like you got the itch out and you made some music. But if it gets, like I think Perspectives had like 50 to 100,000 plays, and I'm like, well, where did those people come from? And, it's just for fun, like we have other things going on in life, so why not do some stuff for fun now and then,
Yeah. Do you find it, obviously easier because you're not touring and you're just doing singles, but do you find the nature of releasing music out in the world and promoting it easier now than it was back in the early 2000s?
Oh, absolutely. It's because I have label experience as well. Like I can't help but analyze it through that lens. But I think that, in between 2008 and 2011, 12, that's when iTunes was really taking off and like was kidnapping all the sales from like CDs. So I learned from that early point how to put stuff out and who to contact at iTunes and all these different, digital, retailers to get music out there and actually get it featured. And there wasn't as much music at that point being put out into the world because it was still foreign to a lot of people. There was still a lot of gatekeepers. Now, there's more bands than ever, especially during the pandemic. I'm sure everyone started a band and is making music at home.
Everybody's got a podcast now, right?
Yeah, it's like, but it's good. It's like, we need this. People want to hear from people that have that niche thing that they're looking for, Yeah. Nobody wants a podcast for everybody. People want a podcast on a specific topic. People want music in a certain genre. If they love Periphery and they want to hear more shit that's like Periphery, how do we get that music to that ear? You know what I mean? And I think it's more specific than ever. So if, 10 years ago, it was a little bit harder it was a lot more expensive then too, where you can get Logic for cheap now. You can get these programmable drums that sound better than real drums, and you can record for cheap. You could set up a studio for under $1,000 and make music and put out a song every week if you really wanted to, where 10, 20 years ago, it's like you had to find the right producer, you had to mow 1,000 lawns, save your money, and go from there, Yeah, we started Fake Figures in 2010 or 2011, and Travis, who's in Atreyu as well, he was a friend of mine, who still is, obviously. I'm actually going to see him and Tony later on, and we're going to socially distance and hang out with masks. It's all good. But you got to see friends or you're going to go nuts, but you have to be safe about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But we had him, myself, my friend Dave Rod, who is in Scars Tomorrow, who is the original singer. He has an amazing voice. He sounds like, Caleb, who was in Cave In, rest in peace.
Yeah.
But just the most brutal voice. But he's moved on. He was like in the engineering field and stuff. We hit up my friend Russ, who actually wasn't my friend at the time. He was the singer of this band Hotwire, and before that, this band Eyelid that was on Indecision Records. Very credible, cool hardcore band from Southern California. And yeah, we just hit him up and we asked him to help us write vocals for our singer Dave at the time. And then Dave exited the band, and Russ was like, "I'll take the spot." And we're just like, "Are you serious?" Like, that's awesome.
What's the goal and hope with that band? Just a place to create and make music, or are there any aspirations?
We started it just like as a project amongst friends, and we solidified the lineup with Russ on vocals, Travis on guitar, writing most of the stuff. Our friend Justin Pointer was the original drummer. He's actually the other half of Dance of the Dead with our buddy Tony. And you got to look him up, by the way. Dance of the Dead is like one of the biggest synthwave artists probably in the world at this point. And it just came out of nowhere. It's like I used to live with Justin and hang out with Tony all the time, and they just do the music because they love it. There's no agenda, and you just keep doing it. And this is like a general theme, especially in PR. You just keep doing it. Don't give up. If you love it enough, you're going to look back one day and be like, "Oh my God, like this is working." You know what I mean? So, same thing with Fake Figures. It's like we were just doing it for fun, and by no means are we anything notable. It's just, we've been fortunate over the years to get some really good press and, get on really cool playlists as Spotify came out and stuff like that. But, we just started it to jam amongst friends, and, we've had a couple member changes over the years, but nothing crazy.
Talk to me about your transition from musician to public relations. You said you worked at Fearless Records for a while.
Yeah. Long story short, I stopped touring in 2006, like the end of 2006 or so. And I would still play shows and bands, obviously, but like touring professionally, quote unquote, and trying to pay the bills ended then. And I actually I still lived at home at the time, and I actually, did I? I'm not sure. I think I moved in with a girlfriend and then moved out, and my parents had this little back room house thing that I lived in. But I got asked to join this other band that was on Ferret Records.
Okay.
Actually, I was jamming with them on drums, and I'll leave them unnamed. They're not even a band anymore. But members of that band have moved on to being rather large bands.
All right.
My dad threatened me. He's just like, "If you go on tour again, you're going to have no place to live." And I had no money. I was just like, this isn't worth it, man. I'm just doing what feels like the only thing it felt like the only thing I knew how to do, but I wasn't in love with doing that, Yeah. A lot of people do things in life because that's all they know how to do, and they keep doing it even though they're over it. And to me, I'm just like, is this worth it? And I'm like, no, I'm over this shit. And I hit up Pure Volume, and a lot of my first industry jobs were just like me nagging them until they hired me. And the first job was Pure Volume before Fearless. Oh, and nice. I worked there, but they asked me to move to Boston, and I just couldn't do it. And then they ended up moving to California anyways. And they were Pure Volume was at the height of MySpace, was the other cool website to find music, especially alternative punk, metal, hardcore. But I did the same thing. I hit up Fearless Records, and I was like, can I work for you? I know you're not hiring, but I used to be in a band and I like business, and they hired me, and I was just like, holy cow, this is cool. And they put me in the position of new media, which I had no idea what that meant. It had to do with the internet and helping out these bands, Mayday Parade and Plain White T's and Alisana and stuff like that. But it was just online PR. That's all it was. So today that everything is online, so it's the same thing. But we had at the time Joyce Mealy, who is the publicist for the label, who is amazing, and she taught me a lot of what I knew, and she was very patient with me, and she's awesome. Joyce, what's up? But I would do everything online, and like we would lead. I came up with the idea one day of doing like a mobile app for Fearless Records, and worked with my friend Jim to build that, and I thought it was so cool, and we got an ad in Alternative Press. But I mean, the whole theme of this is like figuring out how to get bands promoted online, which was very new in 2007. There was blogs and there was websites, but I think from what I remember, was the Absolute Punk and all those sites, it's like it wasn't as much of a priority yet, and it was still like blooming, and people were still figuring it out, and there was a fraction of the websites that there are today. Like I could go start a blog right now and review a few records that I like, and boom, I'm a blogger. I mean, it's not that easy. It's not that easy, but you know what I mean? It's like, the gateway is just like being a musician, is the barrier to entry is low, but the success rate is a lot less likely because you have to keep doing it. And you don't know when you're going to find that success. So with the Fearless gig, it's like, because I had a @fearlessrecords.com email address, I got a lot of responses, and that's how I, built up a lot of my rapport with people from there in Pure Volume. And the rest is history at that point.
That's cool. What made you decide to do it kind of as for yourself?
After I left Fearless, I met my friend Scott Austin, who was formerly an A&R guy at Maverick and Capitol Records, and he got we got some investment capital, and he started a record label. And I joined him because I'm a fan of small companies. I just like that from the ground level, building something from scratch kind of feel. And I know there's a lot of people out there that can relate, and a lot of people that just want to go work for Google right away. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're one or the other, and it's just like, I kind of wish I could just have that mindset of just go get that cush position at that huge agency, make that pension and all that stuff. But I can't. I don't know. You're
just punk rock, man. You can't do it.
Punk rock, man. Totally. DIY. Yeah. But it was fun, man. That was like one of the most fun times in my life, was just like working with Scott and our friend Brent and like a lot of people, and just building up these bands from scratch, and then we started attracting larger artists to the label, because thankfully we had some money from the licensing and the stuff that was selling, because in the beginning it's like there wasn't as much competition, and we were getting all our artists featured on iTunes and selling a lot of music, and it was just like, wow, this is so cool. We rented out this cool office in Toluca Lake, and but I was just doing more of the PR thing along with doing the retail sales and things like that, and promoting music videos. I mean, jack of all trades by far. Whatever Scott didn't do, I would do, and vice versa. But that led to us consulting for people. So we'd bring in different clients to help them for a fee instead of signing them to the label. And that kind of led to me, after I left them, doing it on my own. So, but it's like, if I didn't do all that stuff, I wouldn't know what I was doing. It's like, you kind of have to start somewhere first to have those contacts.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be an uphill battle. You have to like pay your dues. But at that point, I had a reputation amongst friends and different people in the industry, so they would just keep throwing referrals my way. I mean, to this day, that's honestly how I get a lot of my work. It's just like, do a good job for people, and they're going to tell other people about it. You do a bad job, they're going to tell other people about it. So
yeah,
I'm very thankful for those people over the past 13 years that have said good things.
Yeah, that's cool. So in May of this year, you independently published a book, Public Relations for Musicians. What made you want to write a book?
I don't know. Honestly, I was just like, one day it was like November of last year, because I do so much writing for my clients, press releases. I mean, honestly, sometimes I do a lot of ghostwriting for people. And, I'm like, I could just like type out an instruction manual for PR and probably do this very quickly. I mean, it took many months because I'm busy and I have kids and a job and my clients are my main priority. But I would just do like 1,000 to 2,000 words at a time, and chapter by chapter break down how to do this yourself. And honestly, like the goal of that was to have kind of a, not like bait, but like some sort of a, like, hey, I wrote the book on how to do PR for musicians and how to do it yourself, like, so if, like someone like myself, when I was like 21, I couldn't afford a publicist, I could buy this book and at least know how that world works.
Yeah.
And to either A, have respect for it, where you're like, man, this is definitely worth investing the money, or B, I'm passionate about this and I have some time, I'm going to learn and do it myself. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's some other, PR books out there, but it's more broad stroke PR as a concept and marketing for other industries. But I found that there was really not many books out there for doing PR for music. And I mean, a lot of the books out there are amazing. They have so much more info than mine, but oh my gosh, they're so long. And I just wanted like a short, easy to read guide that by the time you're done with it, like you can refer back to different chapters to get that thing done that you need, or at least get that insight. And, there's a chapter on how to write a press release and all that. And it's, to me, PR isn't that complicated, but I'm sure to other people it's completely foreign. And, it's like, how do you set up a podcast? I'm like, I don't know, like ask an expert. Right. So, but my goal is to have that available. There's people that hit me up all the time for PR, and, they might not be ready, or they don't have the budget, or maybe I'm not the right fit and they go with somebody else. But for the people that don't have that budget yet, or they don't want to do that, at least there's a resource out there. And I've sent the link to so many people in that kind of a category, and they end up buying it. And I'm like, cool. Instead of not getting that client, or them, not doing PR for themselves, at least they have something to work with. And that feels good, and I've had so many emails back from people saying like, wow, dude, this book is really cool. It helped me a lot. And I'm like, to me, I have that, what is that thing called, where you're like kind of a imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm a schmuck, like I'm a poser putting out my own book on PR. People are going to think I'm an idiot. But then I get that reinforcement from people saying like, this is good, this is informative. And as long as somebody gets value out of it, that's awesome, So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I did it for getting the ideas out of my mind and having kind of an instruction manual and having something to offer people that may need that. So
yeah, that's cool. Before I let you go, you've been doing public relations for a while. I'm curious your thoughts on the way the industry and the internet has changed. Spotify is less than 10 years old here in the States. And, now it was iTunes back when you started. Now it's, getting singles on Spotify playlist. How have you felt the change in the industry on the internet digitally not affect you, but just the overall, I don't even know if quality of music is the right word, but talk to me about that change and your thoughts on it.
Oh man.
I know, small question, right? Just short answer, right?
So like you're asking like how have things changed from like over the past 10 years with Spotify and all that coming into play?
Yeah, with Spotify and the way like music is consumed now and from a public relations standpoint, like whether it's promoting a band or a song or how whatever, right? Like
I think it's harder than it was before because there's so much more to sift through.
Yeah.
But the ease of access for music is easier than ever. I know that's a lot use of the word ease, but 10, 20 years ago, it's like you read about something in alternative press and then you have to go to the store, or maybe Amazon had the CD and you have to wait for it, or you have to go on Smart Punk and you have to order it. And you can only consume so much music at once based off the size of your bank account that you're willing to invest in that music. Now it's the polar opposite. There's too much. It's like going to Cheesecake Factory versus In-N-Out. You're just like flipping through 1,000 pages, and you might like everything on the menu, but you can only choose so many things, right?
Yeah.
Same thing goes for consuming music and people in the industry, journalists and editors. It's like, I'm sure you get dozens, if not hundreds of emails a day from people wanting to have their clients on your show. And you can only choose so many, even if you like all of them. And you can only create a queue so long. And how you do that, so much respect, because I would have a panic attack and keel over. I'm glad I'm on the other side where I'm just selling.
Yeah.
But it's hard because it's like, I think today it's harder than ever before because there's a lot of great music out there. I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's so much crap out there. And it's like, no, I think there's a lot of talent out there and people deserve to have that great music heard, but you have to work harder than before. Whether you're the artist or the publicist or the label, whether you got $1 million or you got $5, you got to work. You got to work at it. You have to, polish that piece of art that you have. And when you get it in front of somebody, and if you're, fortunate enough for someone to listen to it, it better be good, because it's like no more sharing demos out there. It's like, make sure you have something that sounds like amazing and that you'd be proud of. Because if somebody hears it and they're a decision maker, like that's your chance right there. But if it sucks and it's not your best, piece version of that art, you might lose that chance. So where, years ago, maybe you could just try again. But I think chance opportunities are harder to come by, but when they do, you'll flourish. And you want to leverage that. So, but yeah, there's more music than ever before. There's a lot of great music. There's a lot of questionable music, but it's all easy to get on iTunes and Spotify. You just upload it to TuneCore and pay $10 and it's there. There's no gatekeepers, telling anybody that you can or can't put that up there. Where, 15 years ago, you go to the store and you look on the end cap of a record store. It's like the labels paid so much money to have that album there. When you go in there, even at Target, it's like all the CDs that you see in there, it's like, they choose to have it in there, whatever CDs are left, like 5 of them, Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, which is amazing, but there's a lot of money behind that. There's a lot of politics behind that. There's a lot of executives schmoozing each other behind that. And for your average artist, it's like, I feel like the age of DIY is bigger than ever. It's like how it was in the 90s, people are hustling, but it's online. It's where before it was in person. People are figuring out playlists on their own. People are figuring out how to market themselves on their own. They're figuring out YouTube. They're creating their own sub networks of fans that can check out different, artists, and playlists and things like that. So it's super exciting. It's just different, and you have to adapt with that,
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our theme song was written and composed by the legendary Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe on iTunes and give the show a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, click on the Patreon link at asthestorygrows.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never